Trails of magical electric bolts flew from the end of his tamer's staff and collided with the shoulder steel and the man wearing it, resulting in the man being blown off his feet and left alive, but convulsing in the dirt only a few meters away from Lane and his newfound friends. "Ellen Pulsa! Ellen Pulsa!" Another attacked, a second, a third. From all sides they charged Lane, sometimes multiple at once. They were organized, disciplined, and strong, though their inexperience in dealing with magic had left them vulnerable. Despite their obvious intent, Lane had only left the assailants stunned. However, the same could not be said of the other spells being cast by Niles and Cyrus, intent on saving the prince. Pops of Rain's ornate hammerhead shark-carved steam pistola littered the air, and deftly found the joints crucial to maintain motor skills on her attackers. This was not her first time dealing with shoulder steel. A brilliant white flash blinded Lane suddenly. His head throbbed, and he'd somewhere along the way lost his footing. He stared up at the sky, with the taste of fresh blood in his mouth. The battle continued on as though he'd left the play, but the stage and its performers went on. Lane was dizzy and disoriented when he sat up. A wall of ice had been erected suddenly and was decorated with Lane's blood. Surely he was seeing things. How hard had he been hit? Was it snowing? Something was falling on him, something cold and small. Or was it rain, or hail? No, too soft for hail, too cold for rain. It had to be frost. Lane fell back into the dirt in his vertigo. He was staring up again. It was impossible. It was warm. Not fire warm, but climate warm. It had been the entire time they were in the cove. Even at night the winds brought warmth, and this evening was no exception. Snow on a warm wind. Impossible. His ears were ringing, a high pitch like an audible sting. "You need to get up." Cyrus's voice bounced off the sides of Lane's skull, echoing in his mind. "Move!" Cyrus pushed the thought into Lane again, shoving his draconic snout under Lane's arm to rouse his master. The heat radiating from Cyrus pulled Lane from his daydreaming state. He sat up and shook his head, the left side of his face pounding in a dull ache. He blinked away the dirt and flecks of ice from his eyes and looked around. The battle still raged. Only the bandit camp had been littered with ice spikes and frozen puddles. Rain was still deftly putting holes in all the right places. Niles was mending wounds with magic and throwing would-be attackers out of their circle of campfire with spells of which Lane had no memory of ever seeing. When Lane realized what was happening and regained his composure after the head knock, he again joined the fray. "Lovely for you to join again, young sir." Rain's voice was a cool, calm tease amongst the chaos. Her face matched her tone. It didn't even appear to Lane as though the woman was sweating. She nodded at the prince for him to turn and pay attention to the approaching arms. "Look out!" Cyrus's voice was a silent shout to Lane. Fail's scimitar passed over Lane's face by only a fraction, as the prince leaned back to evade the slash. Such was the proximity of the blade to his face that Lane could feel the cool glow of the runes coming off the steel. Again and again the Inquisitor pressed him. Not a word was shared. Fail's face had a steel demeanor. He had been through hell to find the boy, and that hell was about to end, and a life of glory and lavish spoiling by his king was about to begin. The boy meant nothing to him, but gods hadn't he had to work to get to him. Fail slashed. Left, right, left twice. Some Lane dodged briskly, edging backward and backward. Some he checked with wolf whisper in hand. A scrambling hand had found his staff when Cyrus roused Lane from his delirium, and Lane was now very glad it did. There was a terrible and sharp clang every time Lane checked the blow with his staff, and the weight of Fail and his gigantic blade almost was too much for Lane to bear. Multiple times Lane thought his strength would give out, and the rune sword would find flesh, and he'd meet a bitter and cold end.